Hey folks, it's Rob Flux here with another Sunday session, and today we're going to be talking about how to scale your project sales. Now, no matter where you are in your sales journey, in your property development journey, I should say, you're going to have to sell finished stock if you ever want to get paid. Now, when you're doing small projects, you're probably going to be dealing with real estate agents, but when you start to get bigger and bigger, you're going to have to sell off the plan, get those things out the door, and in order to do that, you need to generate a bucket load of leads. So in order to do that, we've got a good long-term friend of mine, Simon, from A Blast from the Past. So, whoa, hit the wrong button back there. Let's get rid of that background. Hey, Simon. So Simon from Automate and Convert, mate. How are you?
Hey, I'm awesome. Thanks. Thanks for having us, Rob. Nice to touch base with you again, since we used to catch the same bus to school in the morning. So
that was a long time ago, mate.
We both had a lot more hair then, right? So
absolutely. So, mate, let's talk about who is Automate Convert. What do you guys do? What's your specialty? And then what we're going to try and do, we're going to try and give some insights into our small scale guys in what we need to do from a marketing perspective to give them, I guess the intent on how we're going to scale this over time, where they want to head to.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, who are Automate Convert?
Awesome. Well, I've been in the digital marketing space for about a decade now. And our agency specializes in putting people in front of their ideal clients and generating conversations with them, which have high intent and buying intent. And so we do both the lead generation for your ideal clients, whoever they might be, whether they be property development clients. And we've specialized in a bunch of different niches and industries and spaces. And, I kind of find they're fairly similar, right? So what works in financial services, we've seen also works in property development, which also works in the real estate niche, which also works in courses and coaching and all that sort of stuff. Not that we do much in coaching, but so we've got good experience and breadth of experience for all of those industries, including the property development industry. And it's something I'm really passionate about. So we focus on not only the lead generation, but also lead nurture, which is really important. And hopefully I'll get to sort of explain why that lead nurture is such an important piece of the conversation as it relates to algorithms and how it puts you in front of your competitors and gives you a massive strategic advantage and making your development being the development of choice and getting you away from the sea of sameness that every other property developer is in. Do you know what I mean? And separating you from the crowd, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that in itself, what you just touched on there is your point of difference from just going to a normal marketing agency. So marketing agency is just going to get you the leads. You're saying, well, once we've got the leads, we need to qualify them. We need to nurture them. We need to make sure that they're actually feeling the love and get them to the point where they want to actually purchase. That's the key.
Yeah. What? I was talking to another marketer the other day, and he said, if I hear someone else tell me that they need to know, like, and trust you, I'm going to murder them. But unfortunately, it's still the case, right? They come in cold and you want to warm them up. So you want to take them from, say, a 1 out of 10 to have your automations take them to about a 7 or 8 out of 10, where they feel confident to put their hand up about buying from you, or at least having a conversation or an appointment to talk about why they should buy your property as opposed to the other 15 that they might have seen or checked out.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with, like, a lot of our guys or guys and girls are smaller scale. And typically what they would do is they would go to their local agent, and the local agent would put the marketing campaign together for them, and the local agent would put all the copy for them. And so a lot of that's taken out of their hands. They've just given a bill and said, hey, can you sell that for me? Right? Was what we're going to do. We're going to rip the Band-Aid off of that. We're going to look under the covers and we go, well, what should actually be happening in there? Because half the time that agent isn't actually a marketing person. And so they might be a salesperson, but they're not a marketing person. So there's a very distinct difference.
Yeah.
So mate, why don't we kind of do the 10-second tour of Marketing 101? What is it that we need to do to try and, I guess, get a hook? Get a lead, start to actually nurture that lead. How do we actually start to follow that through? So I guess the first part being, I guess, the hook to try and get somebody in to say, are you interested in this thing, whatever this thing is?
Yeah, I guess the land grab in digital marketing really is the grab for attention. And it's getting you something that sort of leaps off the page and is attention grabbing that Particularly if we're looking, say, Facebook, because people who are on the Facebook platform are not going there necessarily to buy a new unit or a house and land package or anything like that, right? They're going in there to watch cat memes and different things like that to distract them from their horrible life of quiet desperation or whatever, or connecting with family or sharing pictures and stories or just laughing at some pretty awesome comedy that's on there, to be honest. But so we really want to have something that is interruption marketing. What is something that we can do that grabs their attention, that stops the thumb from scrolling? Okay, so with the social media landscape, unfortunately, it's trained most of us to have the attention of a goldfish. So we need to get something that's going to be attention grabbing. And we do that with a number of different things, like even right from the image, where we will saturate the image with color, or we'll increase the contrast. So the image is like leaps off the page, and it's something that's quite distinct, and it just pops a little bit more than a bland, flat, normal photo, right? So so we'll do something like that, or it might be the headline. So we might come up with a hook or the offer of being like, hey, imagine owning this apartment or this unit for less than what it costs you to rent it. And then the story behind that would be like, hey, we all know what it's like, and maybe many of us quietly think that we're paying off our landlord's mortgage and we're building his investment portfolio. What if we could actually have the same equity built up in our own net worth by paying the same amount that we're currently paying on rent? Maybe we could break this vicious cycle of renting for nothing and start owning the equity and start, leveraging off the market as it's still heading up over time, right? So that would be an example of, a really cool attention grabbing hook with a story behind it as well.
Yeah. So, and I guess I'm definitely not a marketing guru in any shape or form, but those hooks tend to, from my awareness anyway, come from three basic things: a fear, a pain, or a desire that person actually wants. So, the market going against you right now, rent prices going through the roof, get in cheap, right? It's, then you've got to go, well, what's the antidote to that?
Yeah. I love that you said that too. We're talking about, a pain point, because the basic psychology is like people are either moving towards pleasure or they're moving away from pain. And 95% of people, their psychology is pain avoidance. So they're mostly motivated to avoid pain. So if you talk about escape this vicious cycle of paying rent for someone else's net worth, that's a pain point for them. Or you might have an offer which might be, here are the 9 most expensive mistakes that people make with buying a first home, right? So that's a pain point. And notice the words, it's not the 9 most common mistakes. We're actually leveraging and twisting the knife in that pain. We're saying it's the 9 most expensive mistakes, right?
Yeah.
It's quite painful, right? So
find the pain, agitate,
exactly. And then and then remedy the pain, or agitate, amplify, then remedy. And so, just talk about what your offer is and how you can make that pain, bring that problem and match that with a solution, which solves the pain, which solves the problem.
Yeah. And then obviously we want them to, I guess, have a call to action to do something. We want them to actually reach out. So, we will show you how, or, something that's going to get them to actually genuinely want to reach out.
Absolutely. And if your offer is a big, bold offer, and we like that because that's curiosity building. And we can also, in the ad copy, which is the words that we use on the ad that we type, or it might be in the video creative if we produce a video, but it could be in both. But it'll be like, you can even speak to their skepticism and say, it's a big claim, we know, and that's why we're offering a free session, or why you should do this and get our free report, or book in a time and have a talk, and we can show you exactly how to do this, right? So there needs to be not only that call to action to capture the lead, but then, as importantly, because in the digital world, we've got this thing called the algorithm now. Every digital marketing platform has one. And basically how it works, if I'm searching for curtains and blinds for my son's bedroom, as I was the other day, and I click on an ad about curtains and blinds, what do you think my Facebook feed is going to be full of? Every person in Australia or the world selling curtains and blinds. And do you think I can remember the ad that I clicked on initially? Not really, not unless they follow up with some lead nurture. So the person I'm going to choose is going to be the person who
is the last one in front of your face.
Either the last one in front of my face or the person who follows up with me the fastest or the most frequent. So yeah, in our business, we talk about, this thing called the golden window. Like I said, you've got people who have the memory span of a goldfish, or the attention span of a goldfish, and they simply forget. I forgot which curtains and blinds company I initially clicked on, right? But that's why the fortune is in the follow-up. It really is. And that's why, a lot of our business is the automation part. So apart from, generating good quality leads with people who have buying intent, we want to make sure we follow up and nurture those leads so they remember who you are, and then you can start building your customer experience with them we have this window called the 5-minute window, the golden window. And so within that first 5 minutes, we want to have a few touch points, right? We want to have maybe an email go out to them, and a text message, or might even be a voicemail drop that goes to their mobile phone. Might be ring for half a ring on their phone and go straight to their voicemail with a custom message to say, hey, thanks for your inquiry. Just calling you back about the house and land package or the apartment that you inquired about. I've sent you an email, sent you a text. If you've got any questions, SMS me on this number. I'll also send you a link where you can book into my calendar if you want to have a chat, or see some of the other stock we've got available, or something like that.
Yep.
Right. Super important to have that. And then our system, what we do, we follow up with people until they buy, or until they die, or until they tell us that they don't want to buy anymore, right? So yeah, things like that. But we're specialists at making it rain leads of qualified people who have buying intent. That's what.
Well, so you mentioned the next part of the cycle is actually qualifying the lead, right? So because there's lots of people that might stick their hand up to say, yeah, I'm interested in that, but they don't necessarily have the ability to follow through. And so what we need to do is we need to sift those out and go, well, we don't want to waste time calling everybody. We want to call just the ones that are genuinely physically capable, or not just capable and willing to buy what it is that we've got.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such an interesting landscape. I had a developer call me from Indonesia who was selling beachfront properties, right? And he said, oh, what's your cost per click? And I said, what do you mean? I don't understand the relevance of that. He says, I can get a cost per click of $1.12. And I said, I can get a cost per click of maybe 50 cents for you, because I'll put a picture of a girl in a G-string bikini on a beach on a banana lounge, and you'll get really cheap cost per click. No one's going to buy, but you'll get cheap cost per click. So that's really not where the conversation is in terms of cost per click. The real conversation is, what's your acquisition cost? How much does it cost you to sell one of these properties? That's the magic. That's the magic $6 million question, right? So yeah,
which is a formula: cost per click times how many people clicked until someone bought it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
it doesn't matter. It's 50 cents if you have to do 1 million of them.
Yeah, that's right. And to your point, saying wasting your time calling all these people who are not qualified to buy, no one's got time for that. You don't even want those people blocking up and clogging up your automation system, right? Because it's just a waste of time. So we would rather our clients, and we would do this for ourselves, we'd rather pay a little bit more for a lead that's maybe jumped through a few hoops, and they've sort of self-selected that they are a qualified lead. They have purchasing power, they have intent, all of those things. So we make it a little bit difficult for them for the sake of having a lot better quality lead.
Yeah. So some of the ways that you do that would be an online survey, that sort of thing. So, what are some of the questions that you might ask in that sort of thing?
Yeah, it might be like, do you have another property to sell first? Have you been looking? How many other properties have you seen? Are you looking to buy within the next month, the next 3 months, the next 6 months, 9, 12? No, I'm not looking to buy at all. I just wanted to get the free report. Awesome. And that's great, but you just never, ever pick up the phone and talk to that person, right? So they would go on a different pathway, but they would never qualify to speak to one of our team, right? So questions like that, right? To, just to say, oh, are you a first home buyer? Are you looking for investment? Are you looking to live in? Are you looking for a family member? Those sorts of things. And that helps you form up and shape up your conversation in terms of meeting them where they're at.
Yeah. So you mentioned there a different pathway. Clearly, one of the things that we didn't mention is we actually map out the entire customer journey to understand, look, if they're qualified, they're likely to go down this path, and these are the variations that are going to happen there. If they're not qualified, they're going to go down a different path. We're still going to potentially nurture them because they might be a long-term sale. But it's not a hey no, it's a maybe later. right?
Yeah.
But as you map that out, then as you're starting to qualify them, one of the questions, a simple one, can you actually afford the mortgage to buy this place, right?
Yeah.
Simple little thing like that. So that way you're actually getting, I guess, a genuine qualified person. But to answer all those questions, quite often, it's 5 minutes of their life. They're not, they're busy surfing Netflix and that sort of thing. Are there ways that we can encourage them to actually go to the effort of qualifying themselves? Because sometimes if it's too much effort, they just run away.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we can do different incentives, different offers, and it could be a free report, it could be a free video, it could be something like a prize offer, an incentive offer. Like we've done different things for different developments where we've done insured prize promotions, where a chance to win $50,000 or a chance to win an apartment. And it might surprise you; these are like big end promotions. But it's insurance, so you're not actually giving away a $500,000 block of land or a $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 unit. You're actually just giving away a chance to win. So the insurance premium on that is just a fraction of the cost of the unit. Everyone thinks we're giving away that, but the risk is it might be anywhere from as low as $7,000 up to $20,000 to be able to do something like this.
Yeah. So we're incentivizing them to go to the effort of actually putting that in. So in I guess some systems, they call that like a lead magnet or whatever. So we're trying to, I guess, encourage them to actually take some activity and we're rewarding them for doing that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So we're capturing all of this info from them, but we need to put that somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So put that into your lead capture system, CRM, so customer relationship management platform. There are lots of CRMs out there. A lot of people have heard of things like HubDoc and Salesforce and some of the others out there. I personally use one called Entreport, but it's basically a system that captures all of the client's data and you build the automations and workflow in there. So yourselves, you've built your own one called Automate Convert. So which is specializing pretty much in the marketing space. So what are some of the things that your platform can do that is different to some of the other guys?
Yeah, it's a really great, easy to use system, which is a point in and of itself. Like we've had clients who have used Salesforce, and no shade on Salesforce, it's a beast of a platform, but you almost need a rocket science degree to be able to figure out how to work it. And I've been to organizations where they've had a chief technical officer who loves the platform Salesforce, but none of their team will use it because it's just too bloody hard to use, right? So our system is very, very simple. It's very user friendly, and it's got some really awesome benefits for people where it just automates. So all the automations are happening. They're all set and forget. And we write all of them for people so that they don't sound like they're robotic. They're light, they're conversational in approach. And that's why their reply rate is so high, because it sounds like when they get a text message, it doesn't sound like a robot. It actually sounds like someone's taken some time to write a text message. So usually there's like a 3-minute delay from an email coming out to then getting a text, because it'll take you about 3 minutes to write a text like that. But it's like chatty, right? So it's like as you would hope to receive a text message. It's like this principle of keeping it friends first and keeping it really high touch, as well as using the benefits of high tech. The cool thing about the platform is we've got everything under one roof. So all your email messaging sits there on the CRM. So I can look at a prospect and I can have a look at every single conversation. That can be a text message, a Facebook message, a Google review, an email, even phone calls. We can record and store phone calls. So if someone on your team is away or they're sick or something, I can very quickly have a new person come in, or me as the boss can come in and just go, where do we leave off on the conversations there? So the other thing is the platform in itself can kind of be like a personal assistant, where it can not only put automations there externally for your ideal prospects, but it can also follow you up like an assistant and say, hey, Mary said you'd follow up with Mary in 5 days. It's been 5 days now. How about you give her a call? So to just make sure that no lead gets left behind, because leads are, I don't know if you know this, but leads are getting more and more expensive, particularly to find the good ones, right? So, and we want to invest a little bit more to get good quality leads. And so we don't want to leave any lead behind. So automations are fantastic for doing that. because of the psychology of what we see with salespeople. 46% of salespeople won't even won't make a single call to follow up. And some of the stats are staggering that calling within the first 5 minutes is 31 times more powerful than calling after the first 5 minutes, right? Things like that. It's like, dude, this is why we use automations, because you don't want to risk that sort of magnitude to human error. So we'll cover that potential risk with automation. So yeah, our system will just follow up, and everything's there under one. We call it a single source of truth, where everything's under one roof and it all lives there. So yeah, it's really nice and convenient, easy to use.
Which is why it's so important, looking back to where we were before, to map out that customer journey and go, well, what are the different things they could say, what would we want to respond? So we kind of map that out. And then, as you said, you add some science behind it to go, well, it's got to sound like a human. It's not just that automatron doing things. Okay, so now we've got them in our system. Now we've kind of mapped out their customer journey. Now we're trying to do the automated follow-up. So they're talking to your system, but they think they're talking to a person. So this is, nurturing the lead, following up, automatically following them up. Now, prior to coming on the call, we had some conversations about the statistics about how many people actually follow up sales leads and the like. So it's probably a good time to go, well, why is it so important to have this nurture system sitting in there?
Yeah, I think it's just, you don't want to trust human psychology. It's like, you want to treat your business like a business, and so it should be system dependent rather than human dependent. And I say this to myself, right? Because I know I miss things. I don't follow up within 5 minutes like a machine, right? So you need to have that machine response to be able to tap into the right psychology, and to, when someone's hot as a buyer, or they've got an emotional high because you've just made this big bold promise and how they could, own this place for less than what they're paying in rent right now. That's a big bold claim, right? So yeah, let's back that promise up with a really awesome customer experience. So it's rapid fire, it's consistent. Like, you've only got, like I said before, only 46% of salespeople. This is professional salespeople. This is not mum and dad developers who are doing their own thing. Or if they've got a real estate agent, they need to know this, right? That 46% of the real estate agents are never going to call the leads, not one time, right? And you can tell this by if you're checking out a real estate agent and you want to do a mystery shop, you might go to an open home and see how many of them call you back from after experiencing the open home, right? So you'll just know that. The stats get a lot worse as we go over time, right? So if you have a look at, let's just go straight to the end of it. There's only like 20% of agents that will make a call after the third attempt, right? But most businesses written between the 5th call and the 12th call. So you've got this big gap between 3 and 5, but it's only 15%, right, of agents that are going to make that call after the 3rd time, right? So it's like there's a huge gap in play there if you're yourself, and I know this is myself because this is just the human condition, or if it's a real estate agent, right? So you just got to know these numbers, and that's why automations are so important, because they do the stuff that human psychology just doesn't want to do, right? We don't want to make outreach calls and be really, really pushy, because it just feels weird, right? To be ghosted all the time. Who has the fortitude to be able to just keep doing that outreach and kind of seen it as rejection? Where we've seen a lot of our clients who write business after the 12th outreach, and they say, "Oh, sorry, my goldfish died, or Optus stole my data, or I got hacked, or something like that, or I don't know, whatever. We moved house. Think I dropped my phone in the ocean. All sorts of life gets in the way, and it's
absolutely.
Yeah, so it's not personal, but life just gets in the way. So you've got to know the fortune is in the follow-up. So we want to follow up as much as we can with the power of automation and the art and science of it, so that no lead gets left behind, and we elegantly engage with our clients and we just meet them where they're at, knowing that life gets in the way. And then we can do the things which are probably our highest leverage use of time, which is maybe looking for our next development rather than trying to outreach people who are ghosting us. And then we use the automations that switch off when a qualified lead puts their hand up to have a conversation, meaning that they reply to the message, they reply to the email, they'll call you back. And at that point, our automations automatically switch off. You would expect that from an automation company. They automatically switch off, and then you're in a live one-on-one conversation there at that point. Yeah. And we map out your whole sales pipeline as well, right? We customize that for every client as well to say, then what happens, and then this happens, and then what happens, that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a whole bunch of if this, then that. If they reply, then if they reply with this kind of response, then we're going to give them that kind of response. If they don't reply, then we need to proactively reach out to them and understand what that is.
Yeah.
And then based on all of that, you've then in your CRM, you said you're tracking all of that. You've got the single source of truth to go, this is how many times they did or didn't respond. This is why, when they did, what they said, when they did.
Yeah.
So eventually you're going to hand that over to a salesperson, an actual person. And I guess, so they've been thinking they're talking to a real person so far. You hand it to an actual person, they look at the history and go, right, I know exactly where this person is in the journey. I know exactly where their objections are, what their challenges are, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Even more so, like the great thing about the platform is like full accountability, full transparency. And that it can make some people nervous, not the owners of the business, right, or the developers themselves, but even our agency. You can see everything that we're doing and what we're not doing. So I can see exactly what ad they've clicked on, and I can see how much that click cost. I can see how much the conversion cost and whether it's performing at its highest level or not. And so sometimes we've collaborated with another digital marketing agency, and then we've put all their stuff in our system, and the client has seen, the agency's talking about engagement and reach, and we're like, we call them vanity metrics, because that you can't put engagement and reach in your bank account. You can't pay your mortgage off with engagement and reach and likes and shares. Can't do it. But so we switched on our ads, and now the platform's all very transparent and accountable. And we can see that the other agents, they've got like, our engagement was like 5,000. Theirs was 10,000. Our reach was 30,000. Theirs was 60,000. Our cost per lead was $12.60. Their cost per lead was $126. The only number that matters in this whole equation is the cost per lead. $12.60 versus $126. It's a factor of 10x. So for the same amount of money spent on ads, they get 10 times the amount of leads. That's where the conversation should be. And sadly for the other agency, they're now exposed, and they've got nowhere to hide. And same thing, like if we've got calls and you've got someone else who's making calls on your behalf or someone on your team, you can hear what they're saying. And you don't have to say, oh, they're a bad person, but you can actually support them and say, hey, if you said this, you might have a different outcome. So you can train them up. Yeah. Yeah.
Then, and that's obviously then what platform do we start to advertise on? There's your Facebooks, your Googles, your TikToks, your Instas, all that sort of stuff. Like, how do you map out the right kind of platform for the right kind of campaign, for the right kind of product? How does that work?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it really does depend on a bunch of things, like what is the project we're talking about? What is the history? Like, are you on Google? Are you doing Google ads? What's your budget? Like if you're competing, and I know that the style of projects that you guys put together aren't way out in the west, right? Or they're not huge, massive high rises. You're filling in the in-between parts, right? So you're not really competing with the Metricons. But if you are on a Google platform, then, or with any other developer on Google who's been there and they've had a relationship with Google, they've been there for 3 to 5 years, it doesn't matter if your bid is 5 times more expensive than the customer who's been with Google for 5 years. Google rewards their loyalty. So it's hard to kind of penetrate the Google platform. But having said that, almost always we can outperform Google with Facebook. Almost always. We have clients who do both, and then they end up just going straight to Facebook because their acquisition cost is much cheaper. Sometimes it's our cost per lead is what it is a cost per click on Google, right? So that's the order of magnitude we're talking about. So I think with a lot of what you're doing, even though Google is intent-based, right, you need to be searching for something for it. It's just like we find that you can use a platform like Facebook to be an interruption platform, but you can do some pretty awesome things with the Facebook platform and get very, very targeted with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess so long as they're looking for cats at the time.
That's right.
What are some other insights into? So clearly, this is when people are starting small. It's going to be a little bit more challenging to kind of map out the entire customer journey. If I'm only selling 2 of something, putting this together is a lot of time, effort, and resources. At what point do you think this kind of platform that you've got here starts to actually kick into being efficient and effective? And do we need our own sales team behind, or are we going to be handing this over to a salesman?
Yeah, you can. A couple of questions there. I think when you're talking about like doing developments of 10 and above, that's where it probably makes sense to have that sort of economies of scales to get an agency like us in. And part of the reason for this call is to just contribute to your audience. And I know there's a lot of them that are kind of just starting out, mum and dad, and they're doing, a block of land with maybe a duplex on it or something like that. And that's really cool. So I want to have something to offer for every one of them to give them some insight in terms of marketing, to say, hey, you need to understand this about your agent. If you're going to choose an agent and give it to a real estate agent, go do a mystery shop on them and see how they follow up. That's great value right there that you can add, right? Just so do that. It's got nothing to do with marketing, but it's got everything to do with marketing.
Yeah. So what is their hook? What was the thing that actually got somebody to actually do the call? Have they qualified the lead? Are they following up on the lead? All the metrics that we've just gone through there, just from if you are going to mystery shop, see exactly what it is that they're actually doing to follow all the way through. And you might have to send your partner in, because quite often they'll recognize you if you're the one who signed up. So you can't mystery shop, but you can send somebody else in.
Yeah, that's right. And you got to, how are they selling the property to you? Are they talking about how this is really tightly held community? This is why the value is so good, that it's really hard to get into this particular suburb. That's why the demand is so high. And it's just like, it's tightly held. So it's not that often that properties come up for sale in this area. And so what are they doing to create a bit of urgency and scarcity for you to actually feel that you want to buy? That's someone that I want working for me. If they're, and how can they negotiate? All those questions are really, really cool. And the thing is, I've worked in the real estate industry. Almost all of my family work as real estate agents, either commercially or residential. I've got my brother who owns a real estate office, and I know how great a real estate agent can be, and I know how crap they can be as well. And there's a lot of crappy ones out there. And it surprises me, right, that they're still around. But they are still around. So you need to do some mystery shopping. I reckon it's just the best way to do it. But if you've got, if you're on the other side of the scale and you've got a bit of scale, then we obviously try to make our costs disappear, and so we can run some pretty awesome campaigns that will move the needle quickly and really separate your development from every other development out there. And some of the things like those insured price promotions about how to win one of these apartments for yourself. And that's like a big brand prize home type promotion, but pennies on the dollar to do something like that with scale, and to make it really, really cost efficient to do that. Like we had a developer here on the Gold Coast who had, they had 3 display homes, right? And there was one right up in the northern part of Brisbane, and one in Coomera, and one down here on the Gold Coast. And they said, and I said to them, you should be doing one of these insured price promotions, a chance to win the home. And he couldn't actually get his head around how to do it. So it took a little bit of time just to explain him. It's like you've got like a 1 in 200 chance of winning the home. So that's why you only have to pay maybe 15 grand, right, on whatever the cost it is to build the home. And that's going to cover your costs. So you actually want them to win, right? So your premium that you pay to the insurance company is the same whether they win the home or not, right? So you want them to win, because then there's some beautiful PR about how you're the good, corporate citizen, and you're giving back to the community, and you're doing some great things, right? So there's lovely goodwill there that you can harness if you're working with an agency who can leverage that beautiful story. That's amazing. But he was saying, which house should we put the insurance prize on? It's like, just take out an insurance prize to the value of and put it on all 3 of them. There's only one that's going to be won. and let them choose whether they want the one closer to Brisbane or the one closer to the Gold Coast or the one right in the middle around Upper Coomera. So yeah, it was like, whatever you want to do. And it's like, oh my God, that's fantastic. It's like, yeah, you don't have to do 3 separate promotions. Just do the one and then let them choose.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of different ways that you can execute that too, whether it's a spinning wheel, or you can roll large dice in the backyard, or, you can do it online even, right? So there's lots of different ways that we've done that through different promotions.
Absolutely. So in order to go through a process like this, we've touched on a few elements. So there's clearly, from an engagement perspective, we clearly need to understand who our target market is and map out their customer journey. What are their fears, pains, desires, those sorts of things. Try and find out, is there a hook that we can actually put into that? Understand where they are in their buying journey. When we know where they are in their buying journey, then we can go, well, if this, then that. We can map that out and go, well, if they're at this point, then we expect this behavior to actually occur. So we want to reward that behavior for the people that qualify themselves. So to map all of that out, mate, how long does it take to kind of sit down with someone and map that out? I guess for a project, you said 10 might be the right way. What would it take to actually map that out?
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the understanding your perfect customer. We call it an avatar. I don't know why we call it an avatar, but we call it like, this is your ideal client. And we do some pretty deep diving into the psychology, what makes them up, what is their makeup psychologically, what are their demographics, but also what are their psychographics, what are their secret ambitions, or what's their secret nightmare, or who do they secretly blame, who do they look up to, who are they wanting to prove something to? Is it their parents, or is it their colleagues, or what's their secret ambition, or what's their secret fear? Those types of things, and where are they on the awareness scale? Are they aware that they could live in this property? Like our property here that we live in, it literally costs us less to own it than it does to rent it. But in the last 7 years, we've made probably close to $1.4 million in the last 7 years by owning over than renting.
Equity uplift, right? So
yeah. So we haven't realized it, right? But but there's no way that I can do that renting. In fact, I would write an ad that would talk about that testimony, that story. It would be my own testimony, right? My own story. It's like my own journey. It's like, you can never get that renting, right? No way. So we can show you how to do that type of thing. But yeah. So from when we go, building all the automations, understanding, customizing the pipeline, putting all the team, training all the team. You're talking about a 4 to 6 week process there of writing ads, all the copy on landing pages and messaging and all the automations and getting all the team set up and all the build being customized. Yeah, that's about probably about a 4 to 6 week process. Yeah. There's a lot of heavy lifting done in the build, but once it's built, then you're off to the races. So yeah.
Well, and I guess to that point, a lot of effort in project number 1, putting it into the system, but project number 2, most of that's already mapped out. You might change the copy because it's a different product in a different location.
Sure.
But most of your automations are there. So being able to leverage this and start to scale, that's really, I guess, where this starts to come into fore. And for anyone out there, how and when would you want to do this? You might want to sell it off the plan because you want to, I guess, de-risk the project, guarantee that you've got some revenue coming in. Mm-hmm. You might have to sell off the plan because the finance company won't let you have finance until you actually have this. Or you might actually have this at the tail end and you show an images of the beautifully styled home. So lots of different periods that you could actually do these kind of campaigns. So map that out, I guess, all the way through, depending on what your finance requirements are.
Yeah.
Yeah, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure going through the process with you. Is there any, I guess, last minute tidbits that you want to throw out to our crew?
Yeah, I think, the insured, I love the insurance price. The insured price promotions they're my favorite because I think they're de-risked. We saw Divine Homes use that exact same promotion for like 11 years. And that ought to tell you something about how effective they are. And they, in fact, got it down to a fine art where they would know this many number of feet that come through the door, we're going to get a sale. That was their metrics, literally.
Yeah.
And so they knew that all we had to do was just a factor of feet of the foot factor coming in through that display property, and then they would know exactly how to sell it, and they would know what they would need to do, and they would cost that down. It's like, this is how much it costs. You know, each pair of feet that come through costs us this much, and so they had the numbers there, and it just becomes a numbers game. So your buyers are out there, and it's just like a vending machine, right? So when we know how much a can of Coke is, it's like $2.50 or whatever it is today. It might be $100. I don't know. Inflation's crazy. So yeah,
Well,
you just
can, I don't know.
So your can of Coke is let's just say it's $2.50. So your buyers are out there for your development. It's just like the question is like, how much does it cost you? And then you can say, hey, I need 10 buyers for 10 units. It's like, let's go get them, right? So we want to get it to a precise art like that, where we can say, this is how much it costs you to sell a particular product or a particular property. And so once we've got it there, that's when people get really excited, and they use us again and again and again and again.
Yeah. Simon, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, mate, again, reconnecting after all these years. I don't want to know how many years it's been. So if anyone wants to reach out, it's Simeon Cryer at Automate Convert. We'd be happy to have a chat with you with regards to your marketing campaigns when you're at scale or approaching scale, and how we can actually help you to get there. So, mate, it's been a pleasure. And for anyone else out there, if you want to keep track of these, we put these on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. We also run our monthly meetups all the way around the country: Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and soon to be Adelaide. So, folks, if you want to see us live, come see us at one of our upcoming events. Mate, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Rob. See you guys.
Okay.
Bye.
See ya.